Chris. I have some people here with me who are
Dion, me,
And the
basically.
bagel.
the Bake.
The bagel.
Fair enough. Right, and this channel is called Star Wars Media because we are a media who talk about things that are related to Star Wars. And we do things that are Star Wars related. We do things and things.
I mean, we've talked about Kevin Feige possibly taking over Star Wars, and then the rumours that were going around about Brie Larson in Star Wars at the time.
Which nobody wants.
We
also had a random live stream where we were pissing about.
Yeah, on Heroes vs. Villains with the Norwegian bounty hunter of Boba Fett.
I can't believe that happened. That was hilarious.
The Norwegian
Anyway.
bounty hunter.
Today's episode has something to do with the Norwegian bounty hunter.
Does actually, yeah.
Well, it's the Mandalorian Season 2. I mean, we didn't do any videos on Mandalorian Season 1. Maybe we'll go back and do that at some point, who knows, maybe if we get bored. But, yeah, so Season 1 came out yesterday.
Season 2, Episode 1, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Season 2, Episode 1 came out yesterday. It was a longer episode than usual.
A little bit, yeah.
What did we think?
I personally quite enjoyed it, personally. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those space yaks though. Those shits are mad.
Ah, yes, the Space Yaks.
Those,
What are the space yaks?
Those giant hairy like camel looking yak
Banthas.
things. Those things with a giant mouth, bro. Those things mad. Those things were so cool. But fuck the Tusken Raiders though, fuck them. Anybody like the Tusken Raiders?
The Tusken Raiders ain't that bad.
Are you sure?
Well, they just do a lot of scream. They just do a lot of screaming. That's basically it.
I mean, they also kidnap people and torture
They're
them.
basically Russian sand people.
Okay, look,
Which
Lamar,
nationalities
I
are
don't
we
wanna
mentioning today?
I don't want to have Putin coming over here and trying to steal everything we own because you're making underhanded comments, okay?
I'm sorry, but like they're Russian sand people. They just scream, and Russian people are listening to screaming music. Anyway, off topic. The Mandalorian. Sorry, Captain People.
So,
Yeah. Let's actually. What should we start with first?
Probably run through beginning to end of the episode and just point out like things that happened, things we liked and whatnot, things like that.
Yeah.
Run through a series of events.
Yeah.
so, I mean, the beginning of the episode, it starts off, he's going through this graffiti-ridden, sort of almost abandoned-looking town.
Oh, can I just stop you there? Probably should have said
Yeah, go on.
spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
yes,
Spoilers.
yeah.
If you haven't watched it, what are you doing?
Not that
If you have
graffiti's
watched
a
it,
spoiler,
good for
but
you.
I just thought I'd just remember that.
I mean, if you have to, you know, sail the high seas, do what must be done.
Do not hesitate and show no mercy.
If you're living underneath a rock, I suggest you come out from underneath it and watch The Mandalorian. Otherwise, why are you here? What are you doing? Like,
Yes, you're watching a review on the show, you should be expecting some sort of talk about it. If you don't want to hear us talking about it, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Leave, bro.
Even if you don't watch Star Wars and you happen to watch this, give it a watch anyway. It's actually quite good by itself.
Yeah.
And don't forget to subscribe and like and comment down below why you hate the Tusken Raiders.
Or why you like them. Lamar will love to have a debate with you.
I'll have a long-winded debate on why Russian screaming people are the worst thing to be added to Star Wars since Brie Larson.
I mean, people would argue Jar Jar or Rey, but Lamar's out here thinking Tusken Raiders.
Each to their own, I guess. Each to their own.
It's a big difference. But yeah, everyone has their own opinion. Anyway, so yeah,
Abandoned.
so he starts off on this abandoned-looking planet with loads of graffiti, and I think the graffiti was quite interesting. There was a few things on there that looked similar to things from the movies. Like there was a couple of diagrams that looked like Darth Vader. There was a C-3PO looking one, which I don't really understand why C-3PO is seen as such a big thing in folklore.
I mean, he's the Lord and Savior of the Ewoks.
True.
Yeah, but he spends most of his time in the movies getting told to shut up.
Yeah, he just
That's
gets bullied.
That's funny. Anyway,
Yeah, so he's walking down that alley. He's looking. He goes to find like a bar with like a fighting ring in it, sort of thing, like a box.
Yeah.
like a Star Wars Fight Club.
Pretty much, yeah.
featuring Space Predator.
Yeah, it was like a gladiatorial event. They were using weapons and stuff. You've got the two Gamorreans fighting, and he's looking to get some information on other Mandalorians so he can help return the child. Ugh,
The baby. The asset.
I agree on Anakin's method of dealing with them.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, in all other cases, I don't necessarily like children, but in this case, I don't mind said child because they don't say anything.
He's not that bad. He doesn't.
Yeah.
What's the most annoying thing he's done?
Nothing actually.
Maybe taking up a bit too
annoying.
much. In my opinion, in season 1, he took up a bit too much screen time, considering it's supposed to be a show about the Mandalorian.
True, but at the same time, he's kind of the centre plot, realistically, because without, well, as much as people don't necessarily want to admit it, without Baby Yoda, there wouldn't be much of a plot to watching the Mandalorian,
Oh, yeah,
other than just,
100%.
He
it's
gives
Mandalorian living
Din
in...
Djarin motive to do things.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad idea to have Baby Yoda as the plot point. It's just I feel like in season 1 they sort of used him to pull something out their asses a bit too much.
Yeah, like John Favreau was like, I miss Iron Man, so let's make a child that's reminding me of Iron Man, but it has big ears.
Yeah, like they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna have him stop fire. And I mean, him having force abilities, it doesn't necessarily bother me, but like that's a form of Tutor Menace, which is an ability that Yoda has. It's how he blocks lightning. So it stands to reason that you'd need some form of training to use it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe they're going to explain it. He has been alive for 50 years.
Baby Yoda Mary Sue confirmed.
He's a 50-year-old in a baby's body.
Yeah. And with the species being what naturally fairly force sensitive as is, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why Yoda's a badass.
But I mean, like, so he's there to get information on other Mandalorians, and surprise, surprise, if you didn't watch the trailer or the episode, he turns on him. He wants his armor. Everyone wants his bloody armor, and I get it. I'd want a pair of Mandalorian, well, a set of Mandalorian armor too.
Lovely
But
bit of best.
really, like you're pointing your blasters at him. Like I want both. Fuck you mean?
True, but that flamethrower though, I'd make some decent barbecue out of that. Holy crap.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that'd be good, yeah.
Roast chicken, roast beef,
Damn it. Ooh.
roast wombat, roast bantha.
Ooh, no. Nah. I want to roast Tonton, bro. Or a wonton.
A wonton. Still going with the wontons, I see.
But nah,
Yeah,
like, so
basically-
he's in the fighting
go on.
ring thing, and like he gets stopped by the dude who's running the whole organization, and then long story short, he's like, "Oh, you ain't leaving here for such reason or another." I don't really remember what reason it was, and he's like, "Oh, I'm leaving here, but like you're not gonna like how." And then he'd like, what's it? He activates this thing on his gauntlet,
Yeah, the whistling birds.
and then and what's it? And then Baby Yoda's like, you know what? I don't like this. So he shuts his case thing, whatever it is. That the Mandalorian
I
puts
think that
on.
was a good scene. I'm glad
That
they
was a
did
nice
that.
scene.
It didn't like it wasn't necessary, but it adds to the scene.
Yeah, Baby Yoda was just like, hell no. Yeah.
And
And
then
then-
he basically gives them all a new one.
Yeah,
he just
he-
messes them all
like
quick down.
you've got Zabrax, which is the race of Darth Maul and Savage Opress, trying to kill him. He pulls out his vibroblade. He starts stabbing people. He starts throwing knives around, and then he strings the guy up Batman style.
That was cool.
And,
I
and
like
just
him
grills
doing
him for
that.
questions. And he's like, oh, you know, I gave you all the information that you needed. Like, let me down. And he's like, nah, you can stay there. And all these space creatures came out from the night and wanted to eat him. And he's like, let me go.
Yeah, he's just like, you won't die by my hand. And to be fair, he kept his word.
Yeah, I do kind of like that. They're painting him as as a morally grey character instead of just being randomly being a good guy after being a stone cold killer for ages.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
oh, I have a child now. Now I must no longer kill people.
I like the line when he goes and turns around to the guy and he goes, "He's seen worse." I mean, he's seen a stormtrooper get barbecued, so
True.
makes sense.
Oh, yeah, and he watched his new caretaker get into a fight with Moff Gideon.
And they watched his nurse and protect droid detonates.
Yes. He did the he went and did seppuku, for lack of a better term.
But yeah, I mean,
Count Dooku.
but yeah, I mean, like, after that, like, I mean, those hounds, I don't remember what specific hounds they are. I believe, like, the only hounds I really know of from Star Wars are the Kath hounds. I don't know if they are Kath hounds. I mean, there's also Corellian slice hounds, but they're native to Corellia, and unless that's Corellia, I don't believe they're Corellian slice hounds. So they're like, I think they're more likely Kath hounds. And then after that, he's been given the information to go to Tatooine. So he goes to Tatooine, and he goes to the mechanic from season 1.
Yeah, her.
Oh yeah, that crazy lady with the afro.
Yeah, and all the pit droids.
Yeah. And she's
And
like,
she's like,
"Oh,
you know, he doesn't like droids. And then he's like, oh no, you might as well let him. So I think it's nice to see some difference in his character there. It's like, it's reasonable that his viewpoint would have changed after he's had his life saved by a droid.
By a droid, yeah.
So like, it's character development. I don't feel like they had enough of that in season 1. It was just like, oh, he's changed now. He's now caring for something. Whereas this time it feels like there's actually been a change for a reason, cause and effect kind of thing.
Yeah, it's nice to see that sort of thing. I see growth, and you know, change with a legitimate reason behind it.
Yeah, and then one of the first Easter eggs we get is R5.
You know what? When I watched that, I heard the name and I was like, "Yo, that's a droid from A New Hope," but I never clocked that it was actually the same droid.
Yeah, you see the burn marks on it from the
When he like
bad,
pops.
from the bad power converter from episode 4, the one that explodes in his head.
I didn't even catch that.
Oh yeah, there's quite a lot of Easter eggs that I didn't actually catch straight away, but then after they were gone, I was like, hang on a minute, I recognise that one.
Yeah.
So like, the mechanic gets R5 to show the map of Tatooine and points out where this mining town should be. Now, there's nothing there actually on the map, but it is there. So he's on his speeder bike, he goes to make his way there, and you see him sit down at a campfire talking to the Tusken Raiders, and at this point, because you don't really hear them speaking as much, it's like you see him using the sign language. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, he knows to communicate with them, or how to at least, yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to come up, well, my opinion on that's going to come up in a little bit. But eventually he gets to the town, he goes into the cantina, and he's like, you seen any Mandalorians kind of thing? They look like me. And he turns around and you see Boba Fett's armor. And I'm sitting there like, yes. And I knew it wasn't Boba Fett. I mean, it's like the red neck scarf looking thing tipped me off, really. That was, and I mean,
He was thin as well.
and I mean, like, he's not the same build as Boba Fett. He didn't have all of the stuff. He just didn't fill the suit out properly.
Yeah, so it was easy to tell he wasn't him.
But I mean, they really did lean on the idea of it being a space western in that episode. Like, they had their little standoff, and then something's going on, and it's the Krayt Dragon going through the town. And he's like, fine, I'll give you the armor if you just, you know, help us get rid of this thing. So, what did you guys think of the first appearance of the Krayt Dragon?
Honestly, sorry.
No, go.
I was gonna say, when I first saw it, for some reason I didn't, like, I've obviously heard about them, like, you know, I think old Ben mentions them in A New Hope, I think. I remember seeing them in a game, but I'd never seen one, like, properly, like, I say to scale, but, like, properly like that. And I thought it was, you know, the slug thingy that, the clones and Rebels catch in Rebels when you first meet Rex and stuff, like, the slug thingy there. I was like, is that it? But nah, it's much better than that.
Yeah, I thought I didn't think it was actually a Krayt Dragon at first, because it was a lot, like, should we say, wider than they used to be.
Yeah.
Like in KOTOR, in Knights of the Old Republic, don't get me wrong, it was a big ass animal, but it wasn't that big.
Yeah.
So I mean, it might just be this is the alpha of all Krayt Dragons, but I don't know. So I think as well, because in the past you never really saw it digging underground so much. Like in previous media. I mean, they weren't common. Like, you're more likely to see their bones. Like, you see their bones in A New Hope. You don't actually see or hear about them.
Yeah. Okay, my bad.
But like, it was cool to see, and later on, in my opinion, it looked a lot better. This one was kind of more like, oh, it's the mysterious threat. You don't actually know what it looks like, which I think was cool.
Yeah, you learn as the episode goes on what it is.
Yeah. And then they go to the Sand People for help, which I thought, like, I understand certain people's reservations about, the Sand People. They've always been seen as barbarians, but at the same time, there have been instances in the expanded universe where they weren't all just barbarians. Like, there was 2 Tusken Jedi. One of them was Sharad Het, and the other one was Asherad Het, who later became Darth Krayt.
Oh, really?
So, kind of barbaric. Yep.
Oh, wow.
He created the Rule of One.
Ah.
And basically, I think it was cool that they had, the Tusken Raiders not being just mindless beasts all the time. Like, they can communicate and they can negotiate. But at the same time, I do understand why people think it's not necessarily the best idea, because all we've seen of them before is them being barbaric. And I think it would have been cool to get maybe a little bit more backstory, maybe a little bit more explanation as to why they treat outsiders so badly. I mean, I think they touch on it, but it's just kind of like, well, you do the same to them, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense for that to be their reasoning.
I think on that point of like why they're touchy with outsiders is probably it might not have been planned, but when you meet them in season 1, when Mando goes on that mission with the guy who then turns on him and tries to like hijack the baby. I can't remember his name. He's only in for an episode where they go like hunting for that sniper lady.
I call him Mr. I Wanna Be Han Solo.
Oh, do you know what? That's quite fitting, actually. And it's I think, and he mentions like something about we're in their territory when he like passage to go through. This might not have been planned, like I say, but like how maybe like the Tusken Raiders think of like Tatooine as like their holy land, and people going through are like disrespecting it, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, in the actual expanded universe, it is actually explained how the Tusken Raiders were leftover humanoid species from long before recorded Star Wars history, like 4,000 years beforehand, okay. And they survived by basically through extreme measures, essentially. And the Zerka Corporation, which you meet in Knights of the Old Republic, went onto the planet and basically started desecrating their lands and hunting them down to get rid of them so they could mine in peace. And the Tusken Raiders, they're invading their home. Now, there is a bit more backstory to that, but it's a bit long, and I don't want to go on too long, considering this is already going to be a long video. But, yeah, so the Tusken Raiders eventually warded them off, but then eventually there were more settlers, but they weren't as bad. Like, they didn't cause as many problems for the Tusken Raiders, which is why the Tusken Raiders like had their own camps instead of constantly trying to push the settlers back. Now, there were situations where they kidnapped people or attacked people, but it was usually because they believed that these people were on their lands or they needed to take something off theirs to survive. Like, the way they saw it, what they were doing was just.
Understandable.
So, from a certain point of view, you can understand what they're saying, but at the same time, it's like, no need to be a dick about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, what I said about Mando being able to communicate with the Tusken Raiders, the one thing I don't really like about it is where the fuck did he learn Tusken? Because he's never lived on Tatooine before, to our knowledge. The Mandalorians have never had a strong presence on Tatooine, apart from Boba Fett. And then, like, it just didn't really make like, the sign language, I feel like it's a nitpick, but I feel like it probably would have been better if they did pure sign language to show that that's another universal language in Star Wars that you can use to communicate with other species.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
And I mean, they have their little argument, and Mando uses his flamethrower to, like, basically shut them up. I think that was cool, but at the same time, it's just like, well, that was pretty damn close, Mando.
They're almost setting their head rags on fire.
Yeah. But I mean, it was cool. I did like the idea of, you know, it's a common Western trope of the unlikely enemies, you know, cowboys and Indians kind of thing. Fighting against the Imperials. But yeah, I mean, what did you guys think of that middle part of the episode? Like, finding out what the problem is, and then the negotiations.
I thought it was interesting. Like, you know, we finally seeing like more of the Tusken Raiders, other than them knocking out Luke Skywalker or killing Shmi Skywalker and getting murdered.
Yeah.
Like, considering they're a species that, and even actually during the pod race, you actually see, in terms of like a side species, they actually do quite a bit which affects the plot. Mainly with Shmi, but
yeah,
like it affects character development. But you don't actually like learn much about them at all, other than the Sand People.
Yeah, I think it's nice that they are expanding on other races in Star Wars using this show, because I think that's what this show can really excel at, where the movies couldn't as much. Like, they have the time to, you know, expand on the lore and, you know, bring in more casual fans to the deeper depths of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, one thing I neglected to mention, it's another Easter egg, is when they're making their way to the Sand People, the speeders they're on.
Yes, I love that.
The guy wearing Boba Fett's armor, the Marshal, what does that speeder look like?
Lamar, can you name it? Because I know it. If you say
I would have assumed... Actually, no, I don't know.
It's a pod racer engine.
It's a pod racer. It's specifically Anakin's pod racer from Episode 1.
Yeah.
It's one of his engines.
And it's been modified into a speeder. So I thought that was cool, but at the same time, one thing I don't really like about the fact that they're putting so many Easter eggs to the older movies in is it feels a bit fan servicey. And like, it's cool to see, but it's just like, oh, that just so happened to have survived. I would have thought I would have scrapped it or sold it off, or it would have been destroyed in a race, considering the amount of races that got destroyed during that race. What's the likelihood of that pod racer surviving beyond that point?
Low.
But I mean, it was still cool to see. Like, that's it's nitpicks. Like, it's what if kind of situations. It's not like it's a problem because of continuity. It's just like, again, nitpicks.
Yeah, we're doing the fun review. Dion's doing the I shall get every point review. I'm joking. I'm joking.
I generally find myself being a bit more critical than you guys.
Yeah, we're more laid back and fanny in a way. No, not fan.
Mainly with Star Wars, though. I am... mainly because it's Disney.
Yeah, that point's fair.
Yeah, but, I mean...
I thought it was quite nice to see Anakin's pod engine again, and I feel like once I saw it, I tried like noticing the sound, and I think they did also sort of get the old engine sound like matched in, basically.
Yeah, I don't think it was exactly the same. It was slightly different, but that's because it's one engine. It's not two.
It's not two, yeah.
So it makes sense. And I also like how they kind of had it so it was like, it was Anakin's pod race engine, but it was different as well. Like, there was different parts on it that almost looked bolted on. It was like scrap.
Yeah, it's like the pod had been scrapped, and it was like, well, this engine's here. I'll take this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of helped it, because it's familiar and it's an Easter egg, but it's different. Same with Boba Fett's armor. Like, if we just saw Boba Fett straight away, it would have been like, well, now your big gun's gone. What are you doing? But we'll get to that at the end.
Yeah, it was like bits of his armor. It's like the helmet the chest piece and I think the shoulder pads?
And the braces.
Which one's the braces?
The wrist things.
Oh, yeah.
Although Lamar did bring this up to me before you got back to start the video, that he didn't actually use the flamethrower in the fight. And I'm personally of the belief that it probably wouldn't have worked against the Krayt Dragon, considering even all of those explosives didn't really work on its outer body, it only really worked on the inside. But at the same time, it might have been useful elsewhere. But I mean, my sort of defense for that is like, well, it's not his armor, he might not know how to use it all, or maybe some of it's still damaged and not all of it's usable. Like the jetpack's still faulty. I like how they went back to that. Although I feel like as long as they don't draw too heavily on the past to move things forward, because like they've got Boba Fett's armor, that's cool. They've got Anakin's pod racer, it's in the background, it's cool. But then using the exact same sort of method to get him out of there, it makes sense because it's continuity, but at the same time, it's just like, if Boba Fett doesn't fix that when he gets his jetpack back, then he's stupid.
Boba Fett has to come back properly in a badass way.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He needs to be a badass. They'll just be like, hello, I'm Boba Fett, I'm getting old now. Acid. Poor stomach acids, they're getting to me.
I don't want to think about a placid Boba Fett, thank you very much.
If Boba Fett is to come back, I don't want him to come back as a flipping retiree with a fucking, one of them walking sticks with tennis balls on him. He needs to be
up.
Yeah, oh, piss off, bruv. Like, he needs to just. I mean, I don't expect him to be as agile as he was when he was hunting after, I don't know, fucking Luke Skywalker, but like, I want him to be fucking a fucking.
You still want him to be able to do something, innit?
Yeah. Like, if he's just gonna be talking the fucking time, like fucking shit.
Yeah, like what I want him to be a match for Mando still, because Mando has the equipment, but Boba Fett has the experience. He's lived through the Clone Wars and the Civil War, so he's got some advantages.
Yeah. It's gonna be nice to see him
what
back.
you were saying earlier, though, the whole thing where like the Mandalorian fucking is speaking Tusken and it's just dialogue with no subtitles. So for like anyone who's not necessarily paying attention, it's like, well, I don't know what they're saying because they're speaking in Tusken, and it kind of broke up the show, the episode for me, because it's like, well, I have no clue what they're saying. And like even the fucking, what's his face? Not the colonel, the sheriff,
Marshal.
whatever he's fucking called. Yeah, the marshal. Even he's like, what's going on? Like, what are they saying? And then he's like, oh, they're saying this. Like, well, then why didn't he not just stop the conversation there and then just do the hand signs or speak Tusken with subtitles? I think it was just it was a bit too annoying because it kind of just broke over the fault of the show or the pacing.
I find that's a sin with a few different shows. Like, even some people, like, Breaking Bad is considered one of the best shows that's come out in recent memory. The amount of episodes I've watched where it's just like half the episode is in bloody Spanish. And I have nothing wrong with people speaking Spanish, but when I can't understand what's being said, and there's no subtitles available for the episode, because some of the episodes don't have subtitles available for some reason, it's just kind of like, well, can I at least, understand what they're saying? Because when you don't know what they're saying, you're just sort of sitting there clueless, and like Lamar said, it breaks up the pacing, and you feel less immersed in the world when you don't understand.
And it was a bit annoying, but at the same time, I would like to believe, though, like also along the lines of like the functionality of Boba Fett's gear, I would like to believe that the Tusken Raiders would be somewhat knowledgeable enough, not necessarily to how it works, but like how to make sure it's worth value to anyone that they would sell it to, sort of thing. Even though they probably didn't sell it, they traded it, sort of thing.
Oh, the Jawas.
Yeah, them thing.
Oh, those lovely creatures.
Yeah, I mean,
hate this.
Jawas are scavengers, and they like even say, for example, with Mando's ship, like they took stuff off of it, but they didn't break the pieces. Like they tried to preserve their hardware and restore it so they can sell it off.
Mm. Which would come with the idea that they would know the value of each of the pieces that they stole, which would not necessarily lead into the idea that they would know how the Mandalorian gear would work or what would be of any thing. But I feel like they would understand that destroying it would bring them little to no value.
Yeah.
Which kind of would clue into why they still kept it instead of, probably dumping out in the desert somewhere.
So I got a quote. What's Boba Fett's? Do we know? I don't know what his armor's made of. Is it Beskar or is it something similar?
In canon, I'm not entirely sure. Like, it seems to work similar to Beskar in the show.
Right.
However, it could also be, I believe it's Durasteel that it might have been before. I can't remember. I might be talking out my arse here.
That's fine.
But,
you know more than I do.
But like, it might even be what the Republic Commandos armor is made out of in the Clone Wars Catan armor.
Okay.
Which is it's a lot more durable than Stormtrooper armor and stuff, but it's not completely resistant to damage, or as resistant to damage as Beskar or say Dunium. And Dunium's like used for ships and stuff.
Okay.
So like it would explain how the armor was able to get dented before the Sarlacc.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe they'll explain it at some point because not all Mandalorians had Beskar armor. I mean, you even see that with Mando at the beginning of the show. Like, the armor that he has at first isn't Beskar.
No, it's. Well, I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's not a Beskar. It's like plastic.
So, I feel like Boba Fett's armor is either going to be Beskar or it's a step down from Beskar, but not quite the Stormtrooper level stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, it'd be pretty crappy if it was just Stormtrooper level stuff and somehow surviving all that. But it's definitely got to be some sort of durable stuff.
Something durable that can be bested. That's the best bet we got so far on that.
Yeah. I mean, I did like how they sort of showed us the HUD as well of Boba Fett's armor when he's targeting with the rocket, and because it's not something we've really seen done before, like with Mandalorian armor. So it was cool to see. Like, it wasn't completely necessary, but it's another kind of like, ooh, so that's it. And then seeing the rocket used again, because the only other time we've seen a rocket used from a Mandalorian's armor, aside from TV shows, is Episode 2.
Yeah, it is. On Camino?
Yep. Jango Fett blasting at... Yeah. I mean, I think earlier me and Lamar were actually talking about the rocket. We should have been talking about this on video, but we didn't. But Lamar was kind of like, why did they have the rocket and Boba Fett not use it in Episode 6?
That's a good question.
And I mean, it's a fair point. However, when you put it into the context of the universe of Vader wanted Luke alive, so did the Emperor. Han is more valuable to him alive, hence he went through all the trouble of keeping him alive in Episode 5. And Leia is definitely going to have some sort of bounty on her head by the Empire.
Yeah. Sounds valid,
so,
to be fair.
Basically, everyone there that he could have used it on, was worth more to him alive. I mean, he could have used it on the Sarlacc, but that's if it would even do anything to the Sarlacc.
We don't even know.
Because it's one small explosive.
Yeah,
I mean, I personally thought it was just a bit of feature for his bloody jetpack. But I don't personally, like, okay, there's like a finite amount of a finite amount of reasons for him to use it. But at the same time, it would have been nice to have had that necessarily, not necessarily like more pointed out than say, oh, he has this rocket, which is the only functioning thing on his suit other than maybe the jetpack or something of that same nature, sort of thing. It's like, well, okay, you've just added this whole thing, and now, like, me as someone who's not necessarily a major fan, but like a casual viewer to a degree, has no clue this exists, and now all of a sudden this exists, and it's just like, well, fuck.
Well, I mean, the only problem against that, like, the only thing against that point is you do see it in episode 2.
True, but that's where me being a casual viewer kind of puts that in a cage, because it's like, well, if I haven't watched that, does that mean I now have to go back and watch that to understand the fact that this is not just a mounted thing on the top of his jetpack, it's actually a rocket slash
True, but it would also be like, okay, so you're a casual viewer, let's explain how blasters work, or the fact that he has blasters.
But it's not comes with the curve, Kate.
Like, it's. I think the only problem with having explanations or like going out of their way to show it is it breaks up the flow, and like, I understand, like, if you've never seen it before, it is going to be like, whoa, okay, so that exists. But like, if you are looking at it in the context of that episode, one of the first things you see him do with that rocket is shoot it.
Yeah. But now it's like, well, okay then. If say for example you grew up in that period, like kind of moving away from that, but also sticking with it to a degree. But like, say if you grew up in that time period where episodes 4, 5, and 6 were like the main movies before like Disney decided to take a massive dump on Star Wars. Like, how would you kind of sit? Like, I mean, yeah, okay, cool. They might have been like, okay, then this movie's come out, I want to see this. But it's like, how?
Well, I mean, the only way they would have known it then is from action figures or video games.
Yeah. And it's just like a lot of like outside knowledge that has to be gained in order for you to understand that that's a rocket and not, I don't know, a giant pole or something. But I mean, it was cool, but it was a bit like, well, I wish I'd known this existed, otherwise I wouldn't have assumed that it was this.
Yeah, I mean, I never really had a problem with it, even when... Because when I was younger, I never really clocked that was what it was until I played the Lego games.
Oh yeah, and you got fucking like bounty hunter missiles as the red brick or whatever it was, and just... Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can see how some people would get confused by it, but... Like, if you've watched all of the movies, like 1 to 6, 7, 8, and 9 don't count, you'll understand.
I think Thanos' snap stopped working. Anyway, but yeah, like I mean, it's nowhere near on the same scale as like the whole force healing stuff. Like, nothing will ever confirm why that even exists. But like, just the overarching, like, for me, it was more of a thing of I wish I knew this existed before you just up and showed it to me like it was a thing in Star Wars from the get-go, which it is, and I'm not going to dispute that it isn't. It's just I would have liked to have known that before being like, oh, he can just bend over and shoot this bloody artillery mine at me or at an enemy for the sake of doing it, sort of thing.
It's like coming in the middle of it, like it's like if you was to go into, say, watch episode 3 before any other Star Wars movie, you'd be confused, like, hang on, how are they doing all this with their hands?
What is Star Wars?
Whereas episode 1 and episode 4, they explain the Force. So if you come in the middle or the end of it, you would be confused. So I mean, I guess it would just be down to the viewer to make sure they're not. Beforehand. Yeah, like, you don't have to watch all of Star Wars, like all of the lore and stuff. Just the 6 movies. And maybe the Clone Wars. Yeah, in fact, the Clone Wars is probably a good idea.
Clone Wars is very good.
And maybe
It's not the 2003 Clone Wars though, because ain't nobody watched that. I just know.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get back to that. So they go to the lair of the Krayt Dragon. They explain that it ate the Sarlacc. So I'm assuming that's how Boba Fett's armor was retrieved.
True, and how he must have escaped, or he must have... Well, without the armor, he must have escaped, yeah. Carry on.
And then, like, they have a Tusken Raider with a Bantha there. It comes out, eats them, goes back in, So they try and goad it out again. Like, they use that to get it to go to sleep so they can plant the explosives, and then they goad it out again. They use the explosives, but it doesn't really have an effect. So they're just like, oh shit. And then they're still shooting at it because they kind of have no choice at that point, but it's like, well, it's pointless now. And then eventually, Mando has the Bantha on the rope with all the explosives on its back, gets swallowed whole, uses his little electric thing on his gun, which is nice. I like the fact that they don't forget that he has these things, because in Season 1 that was an issue for me. Because, like, in Episode 3, when he gets the Whistling Birds, there's 4 stormtroopers. He could have taken them out on his own. He didn't need the Whistling Birds. But it was nice to see it in action.
Yeah,
And I'm glad we've seen it since. Like, Episode 8, why didn't he use the Whistling Birds?
True,
But
I
I digress.
think there wasn't enough of them. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I digress. That's not this episode. This episode, they used the Whistling Birds, and he uses the electric stun gun, which we've seen him use a couple of times before in melee combat, and actually in the first episode of The Mandalorian with that big creature.
Oh, that ice thing, yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool, and it makes sense. Electric, metal taste, probably not nice. Bleh, get out. And then he uses his jetpack, he blows it up from the inside, and here's where there's a cool Easter egg. The Crate Dragon Pearl, which is the white orb-looking thing that the Tusken Raiders pick out, that is actually, that's a Easter egg to Knights of the Old Republic.
Is it? Is it confirmed as an Easter egg?
Well, Easter eggs are never confirmed.
Okay, good point.
Established.
Right.
But the Crate Dragon Pearl, that also exists in KOTOR, because basically, anyone that doesn't want to hear spoilers for KOTOR, leave. But
Bye.
yeah, basically, you kill the Crate Dragon with the help of a hunter, and you need to go in there to do your mission to get the star maps, and all the guy wants in return is the Crate Dragon Pearl. Crate Dragon Pearls are the most rare things on Tatooine, and what they actually are is it's from where Crate Dragons have ended up ingesting rocks that have had kyber crystals in them, and their digestive acids have broken it down into this orb or spherical object. So it's essentially a kyber crystal if you think about it, just, I guess, chemically changed.
You know what I want? And not to break up from the moment of Star Wars, is I want David Attenborough to narrate animals in Star Wars, like on Star Wars Planet.
I'd have that as a movie.
Whether or not their autonomy in like Sand movies. The dirty Tusken Raiders.
Here we have the Gungans, funny little creatures. You see the
Not
special
very well
one.
liked.
Not very well liked. Not very well equipped.
See, Chris sounds like David Attenborough. Fucking Dion sounds like Boris Johnson. Anyway, digressing back into Star Wars. I don't want to go on a tangent of stupid shit.
Here we have the identity thief, also known as Rey. Just Rey, she's not a fucking Skywalker, shut the fuck up.
Let's not get it twisted with what a Skywalker actually is.
Anyway, we need to stop going off topic, we're terrible. This is why YouTubers script their videos.
Yeah.
Oh lord.
But
It's just
ain't nobody got time for that.
Nobody got fucking time for that shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see the meat of the Crate Dragon. You see Mando take the meat with him and Baby Yoda, and he gets given Boba Fett's armor. It's on the back of his speeder, and you see him riding off. He's wrapped up the meat, and
Because he beat me.
well, I don't know. I would hope not. I mean, I don't think.
If you count that as killing the Crate Dragon, then yes, definitely. Yeah, he's beat the meat.
As you were, Dion.
And then, so that fight, I thought it was cool, but I did like seeing, even though it wasn't Boba Fett's armor being used in the jetpack, like they used the same sounds for the original Boba Fett jetpack.
Yeah.
And I did like just seeing them both like using the jetpack, flying around, and a little part of me, just a very small part, kind of wanted the Marshal to be like, oh yeah, I want to be a Mandalorian now. I want to earn this armor.
No, earn your own. Still takes it.
And then, but I mean, I do get it. Like Mandalorian tradition, if it's not your armor, you can't have it. Back off. But then, where the big Easter egg comes in is right at the end, just before the credits. We see someone standing there. They look like they're in a robe. They have what looks like a Tusken Raider cycler rifle.
And a gaffy stick, or whatever it's got. I think he's got both.
Yeah. And he's a bold guy. And, I mean, at this point I was like, okay, I know who it is. It has to be him. Like, they wouldn't have his armor this much in this episode if it wasn't him. And he turns around, and lo and behold, Boba Fett is back.
Tamura Morrison.
And he looks a bit older. He was in literal stomach acid for God knows how long. And I mean, yeah, you have armor, but armor, it's not like it was a full bodysuit. There was going to be liquid getting in there somehow.
Yeah.
And then also, living on a planet with twin suns probably didn't do much for his skincare routine.
Didn't have no proactive there to help him.
He would have been inside of a stomach, so I don't think he would have seen the sun, much less than actually been in it long enough to age.
Well, I mean, he would have had to have gotten out, otherwise his armor wouldn't have gotten out. Because I'm actually going to talk. I want to talk theories after we've summed up our thoughts on the episode. Actually.
Yeah.
After we get there.
But
years later.
yeah, then so he turns around and he starts walking, and that's it. It's over. And I'm sitting there like, oh shit, they've actually decided to set something up. There's something larger, because last season one of my biggest problems was the fact that it didn't feel like there was something building up until the last couple of episodes.
Yeah, the last two. When you hear from
Like there was little nuggets in there in previous episodes, but it never felt like, oh, it's something important. What did you guys think of that end bit of the episode?
The ending was cool. I felt like I mean, obviously, following in Jango Fett's footsteps, generally he's quite a decent, you know, naturally pissed off resting face. He has a resting bitch face. And so he follows in his father's footsteps, which is nice to see. And I think he's gonna use his old skills, sort of skill McGill. He's probably gonna stalk Mando somewhat, I think. Probably try and trace him. Don't know where the slave one is. Like, I doubt if that's somewhere around. It's either been stripped, or he's busy repairing it, or he just ain't got it no more and it's gone. But it would be cool to see, even like parts of it, and he's tried rebuilding it, or it's just taken forever. It'd be cool to see. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's not seen, to be fair.
That's one thing, actually. I feel like if they wanted to end the episode, like, I mean, it would have had the same effect, just without seeing Tamura Morrison. So they could have saved a little bit of money on it, maybe made the bigger episodes. And I don't think it's necessary to make bigger episodes, but it's, you know, it's a way to it's a possibility.
Yeah.
They could have had a scene of Mando's ship taking off, and you just see the Slave One following behind, kind of like a callback to Episode 5, where he's following the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So yeah, and I think what will happen, not necessarily next episode, but definitely in the future, like probably like within the next 2, by episode maybe 3, definitely 4, I think Boba and Mando are going to have some sort of confrontation. Maybe not a full-on fight, but there's going to be some hostility between them.
Agreed.
Probably because he's going to be wanting to claim his armor back, and he's just going to be like, yo, are you a Mandalorian, though? Who are you?
Yeah.
He's like Boba Fett, son of Jango. He's like, oh, shit.
I've heard the stories.
What's the story in Balamori? It's Boba Fett.
Lamar, your opinion on the end stretch of the episode?
I think it was good. I like the fact that they were like, okay, we can bring in Boba Fett into this sort of story, and like give it a reason to not necessarily like, how do I say it? Like, give a reason for the fans to continue watching if you see them. Obviously, the whole thing of like, well, what is there to watch if this, that, and the third?
I mean,
and go on.
No, you go. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's just that, and obviously, like now that we're gonna have to, we want to know what Boba Fett's going to do and sort of thing. Like, I wanna see what happens next, and I also want to know what happened to the ship, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's built up some tension.
Yeah, definitely.
It's built up some tension, and it's like it gives it a connection to the more mainstream Star Wars universe, and without it having to. I'm hoping that they don't make the mistake of making it focus like wholly on Boba Fett and Ahsoka. I still want it to be Mando, Din Djarin.
It is his show, basically.
Yeah, like it's fine if they have like recurring roles and they're there every now and then, but I don't want them to steal the show, kind of thing. Because Tamara Morrison has the ability to steal the show if he wants to. Especially if he gets, his armor back. And then, like, Ahsoka... I mean, Dave Filoni loves Ahsoka. If it wasn't for Dave Filoni, Ahsoka would be dead.
Definitely.
Like, George Lucas wanted to kill her off.
I'm glad she stayed. She's a good character. Very good character.
But, I mean, like... When it comes to what I think is going to happen in the next episodes, I do agree that Mando is definitely going to have a confrontation with Boba Fett. I agree, 3rd or 4th episode. Now, I'm kind of expecting it to be more like they have they have a confrontation, then they have a conversation, and that's basically Boba Fett tells Mando about Luke or Ahsoka or other Jedi that he's come across in his time. Because he's had plenty of experience with Jedi. He has all the knowledge that Mando needs.
Yes.
And then I feel like that could be how Mando ends up going to the New Republic. And that's how, when you see him with the X-Wings, and then maybe like the 5th episode, like, they know of him as a bounty hunter, so they're chasing him down, and that's when you see his ship's damaged in the trailer, and he's, like... And then he has to find a way to contact someone to stop shooting at him, and then he can find a way to find the Jedi, and then... I think it's episode 6, Ahsoka's going to be there.
Ooh, okay.
I can't remember. It was something to do with the episode names. I don't actually remember them now, but yeah, that one is. I believe episode 6 is the one that Ahsoka is going to be in, and I believe that will be who he is sent to in episode 5. So in episode 5, he gets told about Ahsoka. I don't know specifically by who. It's probably going to be another character that isn't necessarily known so much. Maybe even. Cara Dune, I'm surprised she didn't know much about the Jedi, considering she probably worked alongside them. She was a rebel, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I feel like when it comes down to it, when Mando meets Boba Fett, he's not going to believe... Even if Boba Fett was a real Mandalorian, he wouldn't believe it because of the whole him not having a helmet thing. And I feel like if he meets Bo-Katan or Sabine Wren, he's going to question them if they're real Mandalorians.
Because they take their helmets off.
Yeah, like, my theory, which is quite a common theory, is... there's different types of Mandalorians. So, like, in the original canon, you had the Mandalorian protectors, you had the true Mandalorians, you had the Death Watch. The Death Watch were the extremes that wanted to go back to the warmongering ways. You had the true Mandalorians, which are kind of morally grey. They fought the Death Watch, but they fought mostly for honour and glory. And then you had the Mandalorian protectors, which were kind of like vigilantes, in a way. Like, they protect weaker planets. So I feel like it's going to be something like that. Like, you've got, like, the Night Owls led by Bo-Katan. And, I feel like that would be the bigger group, because that was on Mandalore. And that would make some sense. And then, like, Mando was saved by Death Watch. However, problem with that, we see Death Watch in the Clone Wars taking off their helmets. So I'm thinking, sometime during the reign of the Empire, a small offshoot of the Death Watch changed their code and became a different group to sort of adapt and survive.
Ah, okay. Good theories. Very good theories.
Also, one theory about Boba Fett, this is my last theory, about how he escaped the Sarlacc pit. Like, I touched on it earlier about, because obviously they talked about the Krayt Dragon ate a Sarlacc. I believe that it was likely the Sarlacc that ate Boba Fett in the first place. And it likely wouldn't have happened long, like maybe a year or two after Return of the Jedi, because it's established in canon that you get digested over 1,000 years
that's what they say, isn't it?
by a Sarlacc. So he wouldn't have been broken down too much by then. It would be enough to give him burn marks that aren't that bad. You can still tell it's him, and it would do a little bit of damage to the paint, which we see. But that's about it, really. Like, it's still going to work with a little bit of tweaking. But, like, I feel like he just about escaped that, maybe using his jetpack or his flamethrower or something. And then, kind of like what we see in the flashback for the Marshal, he's, like, wandering the desert, and he maybe collapses, and the Jawas find him, they think he's dead, because this is actually something that happened in the original canon, like in the EU. They find him, they think he's dead, they take his armor, they fuck off. And then Boba Fett wakes up, and then he actually hunts down the Jawas. So I'm thinking that maybe he got out on the 3rd year, or maybe 3.5 years after Return of the Jedi, which would line up almost perfectly with the Mandalorian. So maybe he escapes. The what's it called? The Jawas take his armor half a year before the events of the Mandalorian, and in that time he's been recuperating, because he would have been in the desert dehydrated. He would have had, like, the stomach acids would have been getting to him. He would have been pretty fucked. So he would have been having to recover. So
that's why he's alone and dying in a desert.
Yeah, I feel like the reason he didn't get his armor sooner was because he was probably keeping tabs on them using his hunting abilities, but he needed to heal up beforehand. But him being geared up with the stuff at the time of that episode, I feel like that's him actually being ready. Although why he has a gaffy stick, which is a Tusken's weapon, I don't really know. Maybe he took refuge with a group of Tuskens.
Yeah, maybe they took him in.
Sure. Or, like, I would assume because of the nature of him being a bounty hunter and him not having anything to do whilst in the stomach of a fucking giant worm, for lack of my brain not working. I feel like he probably was going through the desert for a long time after the thing that he was in had died or whatever it was, and then he came across a group of Tuskens, either took refuge with them like Dion said, or used them as target practice to see if he still had his skills.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I think that would perfectly bridge the gap. Like, he had to recuperate, and then he's hunting